Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, The Novel Nana. I'm Bex. So today's video is basically going to be the ABCs of the terms that writers use. So as you know, most people in the writing community use the same abbreviated terms or sometimes just general words that have to do with the writing community or writing career or industry. And some of you newbies out there, and you know that I love to talk to the newbies and give you guys some tips and tricks and just kind of keep you in the know with whatever info that I think might be helpful to you. So in today's video, this video is for you guys. We're going to get started. I'm going to try to get through as many as I can for you. And this is not the end-all be-all list of all terms writerly related, but these are ones that you're going to find most commonly used and talked about, not only in like a podcast or live streams or just general writing related videos. So hopefully this will give you a better understanding of what us writers are talking about. So anyway, we'll get right into it. I do have a board written for me on either side, so that way I can kind of, check through them as quickly as possible to give you as many terms as possible. So if you see me looking off to the right or see me looking off to the left, it is because I have the terms written down. And I tried to put them as close to alphabetical order as I could. Not necessarily exact alphabetical order, but just kind of A to Z in that order. So the first we'll talk about is ARC copy, or ARC. When you hear a writer or a YouTuber, authortuber, say ARC, what they're referring to is an advanced reader copy. Now this is a copy of your work when you have been published that you send out for others to read and give you a review. And so they are like the first ones to get your story after it has been published and is in book form. So you will send out those advanced reader copies to get some reviews back. On to the next one. It looks like archetype. Okay, so archetype, when you hear someone say archetype, what they're referring to is any element or symbolic signs or repetition that is commonly used in your story. It could also be a pattern or a specific character type. This would be referring to stereotypical behaviors or characteristics or other themes that are universally known. So that's what we mean when we say archetypes. So, okay, next thing, 3-act. So when you hear us say 3-act story structure, what we're referring to is the first, second, and third act of a book. So basically you can think of it simplified as the beginning, middle, and ending of your story. It's just a type of story structure. And when you break it all down, it kind of lets you know what goes where, what needs to happen, and when in your story. So the next thing on the list is alpha reader. An alpha reader is a person who is usually a writer, but not always, but is usually a writer who reads your manuscript before it is published, when it's usually still in, its drafting phases. It could be the final draft, but it's before it has been, published. But sometimes they can do it before or after a professional edit. But usually what the alpha reader does is read it and give you some feedback from a writer's perspective to let you know if there's any big issues that they may find, or if they want to help you out line by line. They can give you some examples or some suggestions that will help your story have better flow and better reach. So next thing on the list, let's see, we did that one, agency. Okay, so when you hear about someone saying your character doesn't seem to have agency, what are we talking about when we say agency? We mean that if someone points out that your character needs agency, it's usually referring to the fact that in your story, as you have it, you have either a very passive MC, or they are gotten out of situations through coincidence, or maybe someone else is stepping in and saving the day, or, you know, getting them out of that conflict. And what you want is to have your character in control of their own destiny. So you want your character to have agency. You don't want them to be passive or sitting on the sidelines and letting someone else, you know, take the spotlight. So you want your character to have agency, and that's what we mean by agency. So the next one is action tag. This usually refers to dialogue. There are different types of dialogue tags, and mostly, you know, you've probably heard of said is dead. If you were in, you know, school a few years back, you know, that was kind of the thing to say, was said is dead. They wanted you to use action tags or some sort of dialogue tag, like, I don't know, for an example, maybe he said cheerfully, you know, or whatever the case may be. That's a really bad example, but anyway, said is not dead, guys. Said is almost invisible. So you do want to try to use that, and I'm totally getting off topic. We're talking about action tags. Action tags. Okay, so an action tag would be, it would be like describing, like, she said pounding her fist. That would be an action tag. It's something that you have tacked on to a dialogue in a scene. So you have tacked it on, instead of saying he said or she said, you could do that, but you also tack on an action to whatever is going on in the dialogue. So you could say, she said, forget about it, as she, you know, slams the door on her way out, or she slams the door on her way out, whatever. That would be like an action tag. I'm going to try to get through these, guys, as quick as I can. Antag. So this refers to your antagonist. This is usually the person who is opposing your protagonist or your MC, your main character. On to blurb. A blurb is just basically, you know, it's on the back of your book. It's basically a little short description of your book, and it's really used to intrigue your reader, to get them to read your book. So it's usually just a few sentences, maybe a paragraph or two at the very most, on the back of your book. Next, backstory. Backstory is anything that happens before your story begins. So if you hear us say backstory, that's what we're talking about. Beta. Beta is a term used for a person who reads your manuscript before the editing phase begins. Betas are not paid. They are usually just general population, or someone that would be in your target audience or age group that you are releasing your book to, or the type of readers that you would like to read your book. You get betas, and they are just normal people, usually, that don't have a writing background or anything like that. They just read it for pleasure. They give you their honest feedback on how you could make your story you know, more clear, more concise. They can give you tips, or not tips, they can give you their feedback or make suggestions of what might be wrong or might be confusing, or anything that they can see as far as story goes. Things that didn't make sense, they could comment on, just to kind of let you know where your story's at. If there's any chunky dialogue, or if there is any odd or weird phrasing, if there's any plot holes. Depending on the type of beta you have, some are very like basic. You know, they'll say, oh, I liked this part, or I didn't like this part, or I liked this character, but not this character. And beta readers, depending on what kind of beta reader you have and what information you are wanting from your beta reader, some can actually give you really good details, and, you know, go into a little bit further explanation. But that's basically what a beta is. Going on to the next one, beta process. Beta process is just I have a hair, guys, and it is just driving me crazy. Sorry. Anyway, beta process is just that point in your writing journey where it is time to get feedback on what you have written to see how the general public might react or receive your story. That's as simple as I can put it, guys. CP, which stands for critique partner. A critique partner is sort of like a beta reader, but not really. They do read your story, and sometimes critique partners are other writers. And I would say that that's pretty much the norm, that they are other writers that read your story, but they not only read your story and give you detailed suggestions on how to fix certain things, but you also read theirs. So it's like an exchange. You will read one another's stories and give each other feedback, on how to fix each other's stories. Gosh, guys, I can't even talk today. Okay, next one, conflict. Conflict is anything that opposes your main character, whether that be conflict in reaching their goal or getting to their goal, or anything that stands in their way, like an obstacle. It can come in many, many different forms. So, conflict. Climax. Climax is when you have, your conflict has come to a head. This is the higher part in your story. This would be the climax. This is what everything has been building up to. Okay, character development. Character development, simply put, is the development of your character. It is both in the story, physically, that kind of development, like you want to develop their attributes or whatever to make them feel a little more fleshed out, but you also want to give them personality. You want to give them, you don't want them to be just one-dimensional, but you also want to make sure that you are internally developing your character through the story and through their growth in their character arc. So that is character development. Okay, character arc. This is basically just the journey that your character goes on from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. And typically speaking, you want your character to end up in a place that is opposite from where they began. So you want to be able to see that progression in their journey, in their growth, in their development. Moving right along. Dialogue tags, I believe we already spoke about that, but dialogue tags is just like he said, she said, or she mumbled, or whatever. Okay, I think you guys get the picture on that one, because I did do the action tag, like he slammed his fist, as he said blah, blah, blah. Or he said blah, 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 slamming his fist on the desk. So dialogue tags is just basically the he said, she said. Some people try to get creative and she laughed, or he harumphed, or, he sneered, whatever. Drafting. So drafting is basically just the process of writing your story, getting it from beginning to end down on paper or on the computer or wherever, whatever Word doc that you choose. DNF. When you hear a writer say DNF, they are usually referring to a book that they did not finish. So that's where you get the DNF. A lot of booktubers use this term and let you know what books they did not finish for that month goal or whatever. Okay, on to exposition. Exposition is literally anything that you are dumping in, or in, oh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Guys, sometimes I'm out of words. I'm trying to make it condensed for you guys. I'm trying to figure this out. It's basically putting or inserting your backstory into your manuscript. And the thing here is, exposition, you would think giving a little bit of backstory would be, good for you, or good for your reader to know. But the thing is, anything that doesn't need to be explained in that moment, don't use it. Just keep it out. That is your backstory. Backstory is usually more for the writer themselves when they're developing the story, for them to keep in mind. However, sometimes backstory, if you sprinkle it in only as needed, it can help a lot for your readers to understand the story and their character, or the character as they follow them along. But the general rule here is do not just dump a huge, block of text in there with a ton of exposition or a ton of backstory that doesn't relate to the scene at hand. So you want to try to avoid that at all costs. That's what we mean when we say avoid exposition, is just dumping that backstory in where it's really not needed. Okay, epilogue. So epilogue is I'm sure you guys have heard of prologues and epilogues, but if you haven't, the epilogue is what happens after your story concludes. So an example of an epilogue would be, it's something that comes after the story. So sometimes you'll find it in the back of the book. But an example of this might be, well, think of any fairy tale where it ends, the story ends, the conflict is over, everyone has went back home, princess, whatever, and you get that last line that says, and they lived happily ever after. That is an epilogue of sorts, because it's writing something that takes place after the story has ended. That is your epilogue. Okay, going on to filter words. This is also called filtering language. When we say filter words, get rid of your filter words or get rid of that filter language in your book, what we are referring to is anything that is causing us to come out of the story, because you are filtering the reader's experience. Because when you write a story, you want to bring the reader in. So if you use filter words, which is basically saying, I saw, I heard, I remembered, any of those types of phrases, that is going to distance your reader. Because if you were in first person, you wouldn't say, I heard, I'm so sorry, guys. You wouldn't say, I heard the door slam. You would just say, the door slammed, or a door slammed, because you don't want to give too much distance. You want to keep your reader involved in the story, and you don't want to remove the distance between the reader and your character. So you want to make sure that anything that your character sees, feels, hears, all of that stuff, don't use those words. Don't use the feel, the sound, or whatever. You don't use those types of words. You just say what it is that they heard. You don't say, I heard the door slam. You just say, the door slammed. Do you guys get what I'm saying? I may not be conveying this very good, guys. I'm so sorry. But I think you get what I'm saying. Instead of saying, she sees the dog cross the street, you would just say, a dog crosses the street, or a car pulls in the driveway. Do you see what I'm saying? I hope that you guys do. Okay, next, let's see. Flowery writing. When you hear our writers say there's too much purple prose or flowery writing, all this is ornate, really fancy kind of wording. That's really all it's talking about. So you're using a lot more pretty language. I wish I knew a better word for it, guys, but basically you're just using ornate or pretty language, words that are overly descriptive, when, a lesser word or a stronger verb would do, instead of piling on, 4, 5, and 6 words. So anyway, okay, I know this video is so long. I might have to cut it and make a part 2, because we are still only in the F. So, okay, next, floating head syndrome. This is also known as the white room syndrome. And this is where you have wall-to-wall text, just a bunch of dialogue. There's no setting. You're not really seeing or reading anything other than this person talking, this person talking, this person talking, this person talking. Just dialogue. And you're not giving the reader a sense of where this is happening. Thus the term floating heads, because it's like two heads are just floating, in a white room. So anyway, that's what we mean when we say floating head syndrome or white room syndrome. It just means that you need to add a setting, or add a little bit of world building, some more elements to it besides the text. You want to break it up, so it doesn't seem like just two heads talking. Okay, so falling action. Falling action is basically, after the climax, after the big thing happens, the conflict, after it's reached that pinnacle point, it's the part of the story where it's coming down. So it's falling down. So it's the falling action. It's what comes next after that climax. So, okay, next, goal. Goal, guys, it's just what your character wants, or what they're after, what they're trying to achieve, obtain. Basically, it's whatever your character needs or wants. That's their goal. So, okay, head hopping. We're trying to get through this. Head hopping. Head hopping is when you are in one person's perspective and you abruptly switch from their perspective into another person's perspective. This is what we call head hopping. Because if you are in a character's mind, you're reading the story through this person's eyes, okay, their lens. And so whatever, say if I'm the character, I would only know what I can see, what I can hear, what I can taste, what I can touch, and so on and so forth. So I would not be able to tell you what, XYZ character is thinking or feeling because I'm not in their head. Do you understand? So you have to keep that in mind when you are writing characters, whether it be multiple point of views or just other characters in the story, not to take yourself out of one character's head and then just drop him into someone else's, because it's very jarring, and it's just head hopping, guys. Don't do it. Okay, next, immersive writing. Immersive writing, this is where you're going to draw the reader in closer to your character's point of view. So immersive writing is where you use your senses, the hearing, hearing, seeing, touching, feeling, taste, texture, all these kind of things. You're going to use words that will immerse your reader into your character's mind and into their world. So this will make it seem more real, and they'll be closer to your character instead of having such distance. Okay, inciting incident. This is when the big bang. This is whatever happens in your story to set things off in a new direction. So this is different from the status quo. This is the inciting incident is what sets your character off, on the journey that they're going to go on. Whatever that form takes, that would be the inciting incident. It changes the status quo. Next on the list is info dump. Info dump. This is kind of like the backstory one, guys. An info dump, sorry. The light is going down and I'm sitting in front of the window, so I'm trying to keep up with the light and talk as fast as I can. I know this video is long, guys. I'm so sorry. Info dump. This is basically when you are telling the reader information that doesn't necessarily move the plot along. It doesn't really do anything for the scene. You're just dumping a bunch of information on them when you could just as easily spread these things throughout, or better yet, show some of this information instead of just telling us and just dumping a lot of information on us. I think you kind of get the picture on that one. At least I'm hoping so. If there's any of these that I go through that you don't really get or understand, leave me a comment and I will be sure to answer you and elaborate a little more for you. Okay, next one. Let's see, where were we at? MC. MC is your main character. That is your protagonist, or the character's point of view that you are telling the story from. This would be your main character. Motivation. Motivation is whatever is driving that character to pursue that goal, that desire, that want, that need, whatever it is, that thing that they're going after, it's the reason behind that, okay? So that would be your character's motivation. Narrative. When we speak about narrative, usually we're speaking about the lens, the lens in which the story is told through or seen through. So that's the narrative lens. So whatever POV you decide, that's the next on the list, actually, POV. So POV, can't talk today. POV is point of view. So whether you choose first person, second person, third person, omniscient, narrator, whatever it is that you choose, these are all just points of view in which the story can be told, or what lens you will be able to see the story from. So that's what that is. And you can also have POV in past or present as well. Okay, pacing. This is just the ebb and flow of how your story goes. So pacing just refers to how slow or fast a scene progresses, basically, or the story progresses, or the plot progresses. Okay, let's see, psychic distance. Again, psychic distance is when you are putting distance between your character and the reader. So psychic distance could be, as an example, you may say, let me think of a good example here, or any example, Bex, any example. A woman vacuumed the floor. There is a certain amount of distance, but if you said, Peggy vacuumed her floor, you're a little bit closer. Or even closer to draw them in, you could say, I vacuumed the floor. So by choosing which perspective or point of view that your story is told from, this determines the distance in which your reader will feel towards the character. Okay, we're almost done, guys. Prologue. Prologue is basically what happens, Prologue is it's like before your story begins. It's like a little section that you can put in the beginning of your book of information that maybe the reader might want to know that happened before your story begins. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. That's as simple as I can get it for you. Plot beats. Plot beats is basically things that you want to hit on to make your story have flow and direction. So it's the purpose of your scene. You're hitting each plot beat. For more on this, guys, go check out Save the Cat. It kind of walks you through all the different plot beats. There's several different ones that you can choose from depending on which type of story you're writing. But plot beats basically is just what happens in your story from, beat to beat to beat to beat. So point A, point B, point C, etc. Okay, pitch. Pitch is an email, usually, that you send to an editor explaining a little bit about your story idea, in hopes to get it published, basically. It's what you're writing about and why, and you're basically just sending this or pitching your idea in hopes of getting someone interested enough to want to publish it. So that's what a pitch is. It's basically just a really short few sentences to grab editor's attention. So that's pretty much it. Okay, next on there, let's see, query. Query is a letter that you send out to a literary agent, and it's usually 200 to 300 words. It might be less now, I'm not sure, it's been a while. But anyway, you send it out. It's usually a one-page, 200 to 300 words, sometimes less. But it's a way for you to get your story in front of someone. You send it to an agent in hopes of them liking it enough or being interested enough in your story or your idea that they would request to see more. Send me the first chapter or send me the whole manuscript. That's kind of what you're doing with your query letter, is you're trying to grab attention to make them want more. And the end goal there is in hopes to get representation, or for them to at least read your manuscript and then go from there in hopes of getting representation and published and all that good stuff. Okay, where were we? Revisions. Okay. So revisions is exactly what it sounds like. You are just revising. So it's a stage in writing or drafting process anyway. It's just one of those next stages when you get to a certain point. And why is this hair bothering me so bad? Oh my gosh, I'm sorry guys. Revisions basically is just rewriting and revising your story. You know, fixing any mistakes that you have, and it's another version of a draft. So maybe draft 1, you would send it out or whatever to some of your friends or betas, or I wouldn't suggest sending out your first draft like ever. But for this example, we're just gonna say you send out a draft and you get it back and you have a few suggestions or things that people notice that might be wrong with your story that you could improve upon. So revising, revisions, is just where you go back in and you try to fix those issues. You revise. Okay, next, setting. Your setting is where your story or scene takes place. That's pretty much it. Your subplot. Subplot is any, like, B-roll type stuff. So if you have a main plot running through your story, and maybe your story is a fantasy story, and that's the main theme or the main plot, you know, is in that fantasy genre. But maybe you have a subplot that's a romantic plot. So this would be like your B story in your novel. That's all a subplot is. It's just like another smaller plot. Synopsis. Okay, synopsis is basically just a condensed overview or outline of your story. That's pretty much all it is. Stakes. Stakes is what your character has to lose, or no, that's good enough. I'm going to try to keep this short, guys. I noticed we're already 31 minutes in. Oh my gosh. Almost done, though. Almost done. We got like 5 more. Okay, so stakes is whatever your characters have to lose if they don't do reach that goal. So it's whatever is on the line for them, okay? Next, show, don't tell. I know you guys have heard this a million times, but basically all it is when you are writing your characters, you want your readers to be as close to that character as possible. You want them immersed in that world. So when you tell a reader something, you're pulling them out a little bit. So what you want to make sure you're doing is showing the reader. Don't just tell me that mom was depressed. Show me that mom was depressed. Show me in what it looks like on mom. Show me her, shoulders hunched, or her, eyes hunched, or not hunched, but like sunk in. Show me the tears coming down her cheek. Show me the stress or the wrinkles on her face. Show me her wringing her hands. Whatever it is, show me. Don't just tell me how she feels. Show me how she feels. That's what we mean when we say show, don't tell. Okay. So, okay, submission. Okay, this is when, once you have a literary agent, basically this is your agent trying to sell your book to publishers or get them interested. So when you say that you're going on submission, that's what you mean, is that you've already attained a literary agent and they are out doing their thing. They're doing their job by trying to sell your manuscript to a publisher. Okay, TBR. You will hear a lot of booktubers use this term, TBR, and what it stands for is to be read. So these are books to be read. So I can't make it any more simple, guys. Just books to be read, TBR. Okay, voice. Voice is how your story is told, how your reader will hear your story. So you want to have a unique voice. You don't want all your characters to sound the same. So that's the best definition I can give you. It's that narrator's voice, and whether that narrator be one of your characters or, outside, it's whatever voice you give your character. I don't know how else to simplify that. World building. This is basically exactly what it sounds like. You are building the world. So you are thinking about anything that makes up this world. What is there? The landscape like? What does the culture look like? What are the people like? Are there animals? Are there certain businesses, or the agriculture, the industry, whatever is in that world that you are building, whether that be religion or beliefs or politics or system of government, or if there is magic or no magic, or whatever the case may be, that is just all elements of building a world. So thus, world building. Okay, so the very last one, we made it, guys. Okay, so WIP, this stands for work in progress. This is usually referring to any manuscript that a writer is working on at that current time. It is considered to be their work in progress, and for short, we just call it a WIP, or WIP. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end. I know this was a long video, but I just wanted to bring my little newbies out here, regardless of your age, if you're new to the craft, or if you just want to refresh yourself on some of these things. And I know you've probably heard these terms over and over, and maybe there were some that you just weren't sure of what they meant. So that was the purpose of this video today, was just to kind of bring you into the fold, to clue you in and give you some insight on what these things mean. So the next time you hear them, you'll know. Thanks for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you have a good day. If this video helped you in any way or provided you with some value in this type of information, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to. And if you want to know when I upload, just ring that bell. And usually, guys, it's on Tuesdays or Thursdays at 10 a.m. But anyway, sometimes I throw in some bonus content on different days and different times, so be sure to ring that bell so it'll notify you. And also, thanks again for watching. Give this a thumbs up if you liked it. I guess that's it, guys. I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to turn off this camera. So have a good day, happy writing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!